Prologue. There is a before, and there is an after. The moment that cleaves your life in two is never as dramatic as you imagine it will be. It doesn't arrive with a clap of thunder or a shattering of glass. More often, it comes on silent cat's feet, a shift in the air, a single sentence that lands softly and then detonates, quietly, deep within the core of you. Before, my life was built on the solid, warm foundation of Oliver. It was a house I lived in, a skin I wore. It was his hand on the small of my back, his coffee cup next to mine in the morning sink, the sound of his key in the lock at 6:15 p.m. After, the foundation was gone. I was free-falling, and the only thing left was the echo of Isabel's voice on the phone, light and careless, saying the one thing I was never meant to hear. He's in the shower. Can I take a message? This is the story of the before and the shattering of the after. This is the story of us and the half-life that remained. Chapter 1. The Before, Oliver. 10 years earlier. The first time I saw Clara, she was hiding behind a book. Not a flimsy paperback, but a heavy, leather-bound tome in the university library. All I could see was a cascade of dark brown hair and two intense, focused eyes scanning the text as if it held the secrets of the universe. She was sitting in a pool of golden afternoon light, and for a moment, I forgot how to breathe. I, Oliver Thorne, an architecture student who believed the world could be broken down into plans, elevations, and load-bearing calculations, was completely disassembled by a girl I hadn't even properly seen. I found a reason to be near her shelf, structural integrity of medieval buildings. I pretended to browse, my heart hammering a ridiculous rhythm against my ribs. "You're in my light," a quiet voice said. I jumped. She had lowered the book. Her face was pale and serious, with a constellation of faint freckles across her nose. She wasn't smiling. "I'm sorry," I managed, my voice embarrassingly rough. I was just... The flying buttresses. One corner of her mouth twitched. "The flying buttresses are 2 aisles over. This is poetry." I felt my face flush. Right. Of course. I'm Oliver. Clara. She looked at me, really looked at me, and I felt seen in a way I never had before. It was terrifying and exhilarating. "You don't look like a poetry guy, Oliver." "I'm not. But I could be." The words were out before I could stop them. That was it. That was the beginning. For a decade, she was my center of gravity. Clara, with her quiet intensity and her hands that could mend broken spines of centuries-old books. She was the solid ground upon which I built my life. I designed our home, clean lines, open spaces, a special studio flooded with northern light for her work. I loved the order we created, the predictable beauty of our days. I loved coming home to her. She was my harbor. But harbors, by their nature, are static. And after 10 years, the very steadiness I loved began to feel like a boundary. The future stretched out, a perfectly drafted, impeccably predictable blueprint. There were no surprises. And a treacherous, hidden part of me started to crave a storm. Chapter 2. The Before, Clara. Present day. 3 months before the after. I was restoring a first edition of Wuthering Heights. It was a fragile, angry little book, and I felt a strange kinship with Catherine Earnshaw's wild spirit. My own life was the antithesis of wild. It was calm, ordered, and safe. I loved Oliver. I loved the life we had built. But sometimes, in the quiet of my studio, I felt a faint, restless stirring, like a breeze from a window I hadn't realized was open. The key turned in the lock at 7:45 p.m. I'd stopped expecting it at 6:15. The Henderson project was a demanding client, Oliver explained. It was a skyscraper, his firm's biggest project yet. It required late nights, weekend meetings. I believed him. Why wouldn't I? Trust was the air we breathed. He came in looking tired but energized, a combination I knew well. He kissed my forehead, his lips cool from the evening air. "Rough day?" I asked, closing my book of acid-free paper. "The usual," Henderson changed the specs for the top-floor restaurant. Again. He poured himself a whiskey, not offering me one. A small thing, but I noticed. But it's going to be magnificent, Clara. A real landmark. I'm sure it will be, I said, smiling. I was proud of him. But I missed him. It was Isabel who brought the color back. My old college roommate, a whirlwind of art and chaos, had blown back into town after her divorce from Marco. She arrived on my doorstep with a bottle of expensive red wine and a torrent of tears and laughter. "Oh, Clara, it's so good to see you," she cried, enveloping me in a cloud of jasmine and patchouli. "You and Oliver, still the perfect rock of Gibraltar. God, I need some of that stability right now." We fell back into our rhythm easily. She was the fire to my earth. She dragged me to art openings and noisy bars, and for a while, it was fun. It was life. Oliver, initially wary of her dramatic energy, started to relax around her. He even laughed at her stories, a genuine, unguarded sound I realized I hadn't heard in a while. One night, over dinner, Isabel was holding court, telling a hilarious story about a disastrous date. Oliver was watching her, a small smile on his face. And in that moment, I saw it. A flicker of something in his eyes. Not just amusement. It was fascination. A spark. A cold trickle of unease traced its way down my spine. But I dismissed it. It was Isabel. She was captivating. Everyone looked at her that way. It didn't mean anything. It was just a spark. I didn't know then that a single spark was all it took to burn a world to the ground. Chapter 3. The Shift, the Scent. The first concrete crack in my reality appeared on a Tuesday. I was gathering laundry, the mundane archaeology of a shared life. Socks, t-shirts, Oliver's dress shirts for the office. I picked up his favorite grey wool jacket, the one he'd worn to a site meeting the day before, and I smelled it. Jasmine and patchouli. Isabel's perfume. It was unmistakable, clinging to the collar, woven into the fibers. My heart did a strange, stuttering beat. I stood there in the laundry room, holding the jacket to my face, breathing in the evidence of something my mind refused to process. Be rational, Clara, I told myself. They had lunch. She hugged him goodbye. It transfers. It's what perfume does. When he came home, I was folding towels, my movements precise and calm. "How was your day?" I asked, my voice carefully neutral. Long site meeting, then back-to-back sessions with the engineers. He came over to kiss me, and I subtly turned my head, offering my cheek. "Did you see Isabel today?" The question hung in the air between us. He paused, just for a fraction of a second. "Isabel?" "No." "Why?" "No reason. I just thought I smelled her perfume on your jacket." I kept my eyes on the towels. He laughed, a short, dry sound. "Oh, yeah, she stopped by the office briefly yesterday to drop off those gallery tickets for you. Must have given me a hug. You know how she is." "Yesterday," I said softly. "You wore that jacket today." Another pause. Thicker this time. I could feel his mind working, searching for the right lie. Right. I must have put it on again without thinking. It was hanging in my office closet. He walked to the fridge and grabbed a beer. "It's nothing, Clara. Don't be paranoid." Paranoid. The word was a weapon. It made my valid observation seem like a character flaw. It made me feel small and slightly crazy. So I did what I had done for 10 years. I trusted him. I buried the cold, hard knot of fear in my gut and chose the easier truth. But the seed of doubt had been planted. And it was starting to grow. Chapter 4. The Shift, the Phone. The second crack was digital. Oliver, who had always left his phone lying around, charging on the kitchen counter, face up so he wouldn't miss a notification, suddenly became secretive. It started with the password. His unlock code had always been the date we met, 1012. One day, it didn't work. New company policy, he explained when I asked, not looking up from his laptop. All devices handling Henderson project data need enhanced security. It's a pain, I know. It sounded plausible, but the change coincided too neatly with the scent on the jacket, with the later nights, with the new, distracted light in his eyes. He started taking his phone with him everywhere, to the bathroom, to get the mail. He'd angle the screen away from me when he typed. His text notifications, once a cheerful ding, were now silenced. The phone had become a black hole in our living room, sucking in his attention and emitting a silent, ominous energy. I found myself watching him, studying the way he smiled at a text, a private, quick smile he thought I didn't see. The cold knot in my stomach tightened. The architecture of our life, once so solid, was beginning to feel like a stage set, and I was starting to see the flimsy props behind the convincing facade. I decided to test the waters. I called Isabel. "Hey, you," she answered, her voice bright. "I was just thinking about you. We haven't seen you guys in ages. How's my favorite power couple?" The warmth in her voice was so genuine, the concern so seemingly real, that my suspicion felt like a betrayal of her. "Oliver's just so busy with the Henderson project," I said, trying to keep my tone light. "He's never home." "Ooh, tell me about it," she sighed. "The life of a brilliant architect. But you have to be proud of him, Clara. This project is a huge deal. He was just telling me the other day how stressed he is." "He was? When did you talk to him?" A barely perceptible hesitation. "Oh, you know. He called me the other day, just to vent a little. Guy talk, I guess. He said he didn't want to bother you with all the stress." He called her. He was stressed, and he called her. The knot in my stomach turned to ice. He hadn't mentioned calling her. He hadn't mentioned talking to her at all since the perfume incident. The lies were no longer isolated events. They were becoming a pattern, a second, hidden life running parallel to our own. And I was no longer just a concerned wife. I was a detective in my own home, collecting evidence against the man I loved. Chapter 5. The Detonation. The day of the detonation was unremarkable. It was a Thursday. Grey sky, a light drizzle. Oliver had left in a hurry, forgetting his wallet on the kitchen counter. I picked it up, the worn leather familiar in my hand. It was an artifact from the before. An idea, cold and deliberate, formed in my mind. I would take it to him. I would be the sweet, thoughtful wife, surprising her overwork husband. And in doing so, I would see his face. I would see the truth in his eyes when I showed up unannounced. I drove through the rain-slick streets, my knuckles white on the steering wheel. My heart was a frantic bird beating against my ribs. Part of me hoped I was wrong. Part of me hoped I would find him buried in blueprints, stressed but innocent. His secretary, Brenda, looked up as I entered the sleek, modern reception of Thorne and Associates. Her face, usually a mask of professional calm, flickered with something. Surprise? Panic. "Clara, what a lovely surprise." Her voice was a little too high. "I brought Oliver his wallet," I said, holding it up like a shield. "Is he in?" Brenda's eyes darted towards the closed door of his office. He's not at the office today. He's at the Henderson site. Big meeting with the contractors." "Oh," I said. And then, the lie I'd prepared came out smoothly. "That's funny. I just spoke to Sarah Henderson this morning. She said the project was on hold until the new materials are approved next week." The color drained from Brenda's face. She was a terrible liar. "Oh, right. It's a pre-meeting. About the materials. He should be back soon. You can wait." "No," I said softly, the world tilting on its axis. "No, that's all right." I walked out, my legs feeling like rubber. He wasn't at the site. He wasn't at the office. He was somewhere else. With someone else. I got into my car and sat in the silence, the rain blurring the world outside. The final thread of hope snapped. I took out my phone. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely dial. I called his mobile. It rang and went to voicemail. You've reached Oliver Thorne. Leave a message. I called again and again. A desperate, pathetic barrage of calls. On the fifth try, it connected. My breath caught, but the voice that answered wasn't his. It was Isabel's. Bright, slightly breathless, as if she'd been running. Hello. The sound of her voice, on his phone, in the middle of a workday, was a physical blow. My own voice was a stranger's, thin and reedy. Isabel? It's Clara. Is Oliver there? A beat of silence. A universe of understanding collapsing into that tiny, silent void. I could hear background noise, the faint sound of water running. A shower. Oh, Clara. Her voice was now artificially bright, stretched tight over panic. No, he's not around. My heart had stopped. I was a ghost. Where is he? Another pause. Then, the words. The three words that divided my life. He's in the shower. Can I take a message? Click. The line went dead. Or maybe I did. I sat there in the driver's seat, the phone still pressed to my ear, listening to the dial tone, a monotonous sound that was the soundtrack to the end of my world. He's in the shower. The bomb had detonated. The before was over. Chapter 6. The aftermath. The confession. I don't remember driving home. I have a vague memory of traffic lights, of rain, of my own face reflected, pale and ghastly, in the rearview mirror. I walked into our house, our beautiful architect design house, and it felt like a tomb. I sat on the sofa, the same one we'd picked out together, and waited. I didn't cry. I was numb, frozen solid from the inside out. I was an observer in the ruins of my own life. The key turned in the lock at 7:02 p.m. He came in, shaking rain from his hair, his face a careful composition of mild fatigue. Clara, you're sitting in the dark. He flipped on a lamp, and I flinched from the sudden light. He came closer, his smile fading as he saw my face. Hey, what's wrong? You look pale. I looked at him. I really looked at him. I saw the man who had held my hand through my father's funeral. The man who had cooked me soup when I had the flu. The man who had whispered forever into my hair on our wedding night. And I saw the stranger who had betrayed me. Isabel called me today, I said. My voice was flat, dead. From your phone. I watched it happen. I saw the blood drain from his face, leaving a waxy, grey pallor. I saw his eyes widen with pure, unadulterated panic. I saw his mouth open, but no sound came out. The mask didn't just slip, it shattered. Clara. He finally choked out. I can explain. Explain what, Oliver? I asked, my voice still terrifyingly calm. Explain why my best friend was answering your phone while you were in the shower. On a Thursday afternoon when you were supposed to be at a site meeting that doesn't exist. He crumpled. It was a physical thing. His shoulders slumped, his knees seemed to give way, and he sank into the armchair opposite me, burying his face in his hands. His body was racked with silent sobs. It just happened, he mumbled into his hands, the same pathetic, cliched words I knew would come. Don't, I said, the first spark of emotion, searing, white-hot anger, flaring in my chest. Don't you dare tell me it just happened. When did it start? How long? He looked up, his face streaked with tears. I felt nothing. No pity. No compassion. Just a vast, icy emptiness. A few months, he whispered. After she started coming around more. It was a moment of weakness. It didn't mean anything, Clara, I swear to God. It's you I love. It's always been you. Each word was another cut, A few months. They had been lying to me, in my own home, for months. A moment of weakness. It was a sustained, deliberate deception. It didn't mean anything. That was the greatest insult of all. That he could shatter our world for something that didn't mean anything. I stood up. I felt tall and powerful in my devastation. "Get out," I said. "Clara, please. Get out." I screamed, the sound tearing from my throat, raw and guttural. "Get out of this house. I don't want to look at you." He stared at me, shocked by my fury. He had never seen me like this. I had never seen me like this. He stood, slowly, defeated. I'll go to a hotel." He walked to the door, a broken man, and left. The door clicked shut. The silence that descended was absolute. I was alone in the ruins. The aftermath had begun. Chapter 7. The Forensic Audit. The days that followed were a blur of pain and a brutal, obsessive need to know. I was an archaeologist of my own betrayal, sifting through the ashes of my marriage, looking for clues I had missed. I started with the calendar. That business trip to Chicago last spring. I called the hotel, pretending to be his assistant needing a copy of the receipt. He had stayed for 3 nights. A quick search on Instagram, a platform I rarely used, revealed that Isabel had posted from Chicago that same weekend. A photo of her at a gallery opening, a glass of champagne in her hand. The caption, "So inspired." And the company isn't bad either. #art #Chicagonites. I hadn't thought twice about it at the time. Now, it was a glaring, neon sign. The weekend he was helping his brother move. I called his brother, Tom. "Hey, Tom, just wanted to thank you again for helping Oliver with the Henderson data crunch that weekend a few months back. It was a lifesaver." Tom sounded confused. "The what?" "Oh, yeah. No problem. Anything for Ollie." He didn't know what I was talking about. It had been a lie. A whole weekend, a fabricated story, just so he could be with her. I looked at photos from our last anniversary dinner. He was smiling, his arm around me. But his eyes, they looked past me, distant. Had he been thinking of her? Had he texted her under the table? Every memory, every cherished moment of the last year was now suspect. Our life together had been a beautifully wrapped box, and now I had discovered it was full of rot. The before was a lie. It had all been a lie. I moved into the guest room. The master bedroom, with its king-size bed and his side, her side, was a crime scene. I couldn't bear to be in there. The house became a labyrinth of painful memories. His toothbrush in the holder. His favorite cereal in the pantry. Every object was a landmine. He called. He texted. He sent flowers. I threw the flowers in the trash, the cellophane crinkling like mocking laughter. His messages were full of pleas and self-flagellation. "Clara, I'm so sorry. I'm a monster. I'll do anything. Please just talk to me." I ended it with her. "It's over. I told her I choose you. I'll always choose you. I'm staying at the Fairmont. Room 1124. Please come. We need to talk." I didn't respond. The words meant nothing. The foundation of trust was gone. How do you build a house on quicksand? Chapter 8. The Other Woman. I had to see her. I had to look my friend, my sister in all but blood, in the eye and see the truth there. I drove to her apartment, a trendy loft in a converted warehouse. She opened the door, and for a moment, we just stared at each other. She looked terrible, pale, with dark circles under her eyes. She had been crying. "Clara," she breathed, her voice shaky. "Can I come in?" My voice was cold. She stepped aside. Her apartment was usually a controlled chaos of canvases, art books, and clothes. Today, it just looked messy and sad. We stood in the middle of the room, 2 actors who had forgotten their lines. "Why, Isabel?" It was the only question that mattered. Tears started to stream down her face. I never meant for this to happen. You have to believe me. I was so lonely after Marco, and Oliver was just there. He was so solid, so kind. We started talking, really talking. He understood me. Understood you? I repeated, the irony so bitter it made my tongue curl. He's my husband. You were my friend. I know, she wailed. Don't you think I know that? I hate myself. But we connected, Clara. In a way I've never connected with anyone. It was like a drug. It was wrong. I knew it was wrong every second, but I couldn't stop. Her confession was all about her. Her loneliness, her connection, her pain. There was no real remorse for what she had done to me, only self-pity for the predicament she was in. Did you ever think about me? I asked, my voice trembling for the first time. When you were in his arms, in my bed, did you ever think about the woman whose life you were destroying? She looked down at her hands. It wasn't in your bed, she whispered, as if that made it better. A fresh wave of nausea hit me. Of course. They had their own places, their own secret world. Hotels. Her apartment. They had created a whole parallel universe of intimacy while I was at home, blindly trusting, preserving my own fragile world of books and love. I loved you like a sister, I said, the pain so acute it was a physical weight on my chest. I loved you too, Clara. I still do. This thing with Oliver, it wasn't about you. It was about us. Him and me. That was the final blow. The ultimate betrayal. She was rewriting history, casting their affair as a grand, inevitable love story, and casting me as the inconvenient obstacle. I looked at her, this woman I had laughed with, cried with, shared my secrets with, and I felt nothing. The friendship was a book, and someone had ripped out all the pages. There is no him and you, Isabel, I said, turning to leave. There's just the wreckage you helped create. Don't contact me again. I walked out, closing the door on that chapter of my life forever. The confrontation hadn't brought closure. It had only deepened the wound. Chapter 9. The Half-Life. Oliver moved back into the house after 2 weeks. Not because I asked him to, but because he refused to give up. He slept in the guest room. I had taken the master, purging it of his things, reclaiming it as my own. We were roommates, ghosts haunting the same space. We started couples counseling. Dr. Evans, a woman with a kind face and calm voice, tried to guide us through the minefield. Oliver, she said, can you tell Clara why you had the affair? Not the how it happened, but the why. He struggled, his hands clasped between his knees. I felt invisible. The routine. It was suffocating. Clara is so strong, so self-contained. I felt like she didn't need me anymore. Isabel, she made me feel seen. Important. It was a stupid, selfish, horrible way to feel that, but it's the truth. I listened, my arms crossed. His words were meant to be an explanation, but to me, they were just excuses. My strength was a reason to betray me? My self-containment was a fault? Clara, Dr. Evans turned to me. What would it take for you to feel safe with Oliver again? I was silent for a long time. I don't know if I can, I said finally. The trust isn't just broken. It's pulverized. How can I ever believe a word he says? If he says he's working late, I'll wonder. If he gets a text, I'll wonder. I don't want to be that woman. The policewoman in my own marriage. We went through the motions. We had date nights. We practiced active listening. We talked about forgiveness, but it was like trying to glue a shattered vase back together. Even if you managed to get all the pieces, the cracks would always be there, visible and weak. I was living a half-life. I was going through the motions of being a wife, but my heart was a closed-off, frozen thing. Oliver was trying, desperately trying, to be the man from the before. But he wasn't that man. The affair had changed him, too. He was quieter, weighed down by guilt, walking on eggshells around me. The love wasn't entirely gone. I could still remember it, like a phantom limb, but it was buried under an avalanche of pain, anger, and distrust. We were two strangers, bound together by a shared history that had been revealed to be a fiction. One evening, I was in my studio, working on the Wuthering Heights book. I was rebacking it, a delicate process of applying new leather to the spine. I could make it look whole again, beautiful even. But it would never be the original. It would always be a restored version, its value now in its survival, not in its pristine state. I looked at my hands, carefully smoothing the leather. And I knew. I knew with a certainty that settled deep in my bones. I couldn't spend the rest of my life restoring a broken marriage. I didn't want a half-life. I wanted a whole one. Chapter 10. The Reckoning. I found him in the living room, staring into the unlit fireplace, a glass of whiskey in his hand. The scene was so reminiscent of that first night, but now everything was different. He looked up as I entered, and in his eyes, I saw that he knew what was coming. We had become so adept at reading each other's silences. "We can't fix this, can we?" he said, his voice raw with a grief he had no right to feel. I shook my head, the tears finally coming. Not tears of anger, but of a profound, exhausted sorrow for the death of the beautiful dream we had shared.
"No, Oliver."
"We can't." He put his head in his hands. "I've destroyed everything. I've destroyed us." "Yes," I said softly, because it was the truth. There was no comfort I could offer him. "You did." "I don't want to lose you, Clara. You lost me the moment you chose to lie to me. The affair was bad, Oliver. But the lies are what killed it." We sat in the crushing silence for a long time, the ghosts of our former selves watching us from the corners of the room. "What happens now?" he asked, finally looking at me. "Now," I said, wiping my tears, my voice gaining a strength I didn't know I still possessed. "We stop trying to resurrect something that's dead. We let it go." It was over. The half-life was over. Now began the painful, necessary work of building a new one. Epilogue. 1 year later. I live in a small apartment now, on the other side of the city. It's filled with my things, my books, my restoration tools, my plants. The light is good in the morning. It smells of leather, paper, and my own coffee. It is mine, and only mine. The silence is no longer heavy. It is peaceful. The divorce was finalized 6 months ago. It was civil, a dissection of assets and memories with the clinical precision of lawyers. The last time I saw Oliver, at the lawyer's office, he looked older. The boyish charm had been sanded away, leaving a more serious, weathered man in its place. He wished me well. I think he meant it. The pain is no longer a sharp, daily agony. It's a scar, a part of my history, a reminder of what I survived. I am restoring books again, and slowly, I am restoring myself. I've even started taking on apprentices, teaching them the art of preservation. Isabel sent me a letter once, a long, rambling apology. I held it over the kitchen sink, lit a match, and watched it burn. The ashes swirled down the drain. Some messages don't need to be taken. Some stories don't deserve to be preserved. I heard through the grapevine that they didn't last. Their great love, born in secrecy and betrayal, couldn't survive the harsh light of day. I feel nothing about that. Not schadenfreude, not pity. It simply is. I am learning that there is not just a before and an after. There is also a beyond. It is not the vibrant, certain world I knew with Oliver. It is different. It is quieter. It is more real. It is built not on the foundation of another, but on the newly discovered, unshakable bedrock of myself. Sometimes, on a clear night, I look out my window and I don't feel the ache of loneliness. I feel the quiet thrill of possibility. The half-life is over. My life, My whole life is finally, truly, my own. And it is beginning